As Republicans continue to enact policies against both legal and undocumented immigrants, the majority of American citizens actually welcome immigrants into this country. Now, if you were to watch a Trump rally, if you were to watch some of the Republican pundits, you would have to think, oh no, Americans say we've got a big problem with immigration. A lot of Americans agree that we need to slow down refugees and we need to make sure that we have less people coming into the country. Well, again, that's not true at all. According to a new survey released by the Pew Research Center, a massive majority of Americans actually do love immigrants and want there to be a way for immigrants living in the U.S. already illegally to be able to stay in the country legally. We're talking basically, in a way, amnesty. In a way. Now, of course, there is the caveat where they need to meet certain conditions, right? So now the poll didn't really get into the certain conditions, but I would assume, of course, learning the language, perhaps, or at least trying to get a job, right? Um, Now, this is all while the Trump administration wants to crack down on immigration. Now, there were ICE raids in Mississippi that arrested 700 suspected undocumented immigrants. And recently, you also had the administration announcing a restriction of green cards. But let me give you some of the numbers here. Now, the survey was conducted from late July to early August, that's before the raids, and found that 72% of Americans want there to be a path to legal status for undocumented immigrants. Even Republicans and Republican leading independents agree that there should be a legal way for undocumented immigrants to remain in the U.S. Now, one of the things that they say is, look, okay, if you come here and you work, you should pay taxes, right? Well, good news. Most undocumented immigrants pay taxes. They pay state and local taxes, sometimes federal taxes taken out of their paychecks. They just don't get anything back from it. Again, they pay into Medicare, Social Security, but since they're non-citizens, they'll never get that back unless they become naturalized citizens. So, look, we've already met that condition. Great. Now, there's more here. The view, what's interesting is that view, right, from Republicans and independents, 54%, that's still a majority, say that they must have a pathway to, or they want a pathway to citizenship for immigrants. That's actually decreased since 2017, as Donald Trump has increased his hateful rhetoric against, immigrants. That's only fallen by 5%, 5 points. That's actually kind of shocking. That still you have a majority of Republicans that are like, I don't know, man. Look, undocumented immigrants should still have a pathway to citizenship that they should be able to earn. Okay. All right. So there you go. Now, 9 in 10 Democrats, and this is where the difference is, and Democratic leaning independents support a legal way for undocumented immigrants to become citizens, which has been steady since 2017. 72% is a really huge number. Nearly 3/4 of this country disagree with the Republican Party's position on undocumented immigrants having a pathway to citizenship. Now, to me, that kind of shows that we have a little bit of an extremist in the White House that doesn't represent most Americans, the views of most Americans, right? Look, before Donald Trump, the Republican Party even tried to do a pathway to citizenship. Marco Rubio. Then again, of course, Marco Rubio, because of the base, ended up tanking his own bill that had a pathway to citizenship in it. There were numerous bipartisan attempts to do this, which ended up because, of course, the extremist base didn't, ended up leading these Republicans to worry about being reelected. So they spiked the bill. So now there's more, and here's more very significant differences between Republicans and Democrats in most of the country versus more of a minority of the country. 71% of Democrats and leaning independents thought it was very important to provide safe and sanitary conditions for asylum seekers. Now, that should be a no-brainer. If we are going to hold asylum seekers in these facilities, well, you need to make sure that they are safe and sanitary, right? Look, that they have access to, and we're not saying that put them up in a 5-star hotel like the Hilton or maybe Trump Tower. No, we're not saying any of that. What we're saying is that they need to have access to soap, clean water, food, places to sleep, like beds or cots, something, right? But of course, the Trump administration had argued, and I showed you video of this, that no, toothbrushes or what was it, toothpaste and soap and beds, well, they shouldn't be considered, right? We shouldn't have to offer those to have safe and sanitary. And they were making this argument before three judges that were like, wait a minute, how can you not have soap and toothpaste and call it safe and sanitary? But it's the argument that they're making. And of course, the polling reinforces that. Only 32% of Republicans and Republican leaning independents said that it's very important to provide safe and sanitary conditions for these asylum seekers. Now, again, asylum seekers, remember, they're literally fleeing their homes because of, in many cases, violence. The violence in some cases directly caused by U.S. meddling in Central America. Again, you have the drug war. You have, coup in Honduras. Again, U.S. meddling, helping to topple some of these countries' leaders. A lot of left-leaning leaders, by the way, end up getting toppled. And so you have to remember that. You have to put that in context of why they're leaving their countries and making this perilous journey to the United States. And yet, over 70% of Republicans say, we don't care if it's safe and sanitary. In fact, we would prefer to not put an emphasis on that and holding these people. Or they could go and they could be mistreated. We can put them in cages. We can make sure that they, don't have beds or toothpaste or anything like that. We don't really care about that. I mean, it's insanity, right? So now, here's the thing. For one, we should not put them in cages at all. I think we should reverse the zero tolerance policy and increase immigration judges. Now, on the immigration judges question here, right, which would, of course, reduce the caseload, get people, into the United States who qualify to be in the United States, who are not criminals, and then kick out of the system so-called asylum seekers, and I'm going with the right-wing talking point so that I can get them on their level, right? So, okay, you claim that there are Middle Eastern people, there are terrorists, MS-13, that are coming in with the asylum seekers, right? Okay, well, if you have more immigration judges, they can look at the information and they can determine if these people are indeed dangerous faster, and so we can kick them out of the system and deport them back to their own countries and reduce the amount of people that are being held in these ICE detention facilities. More immigration judges. So now, when asked about increasing the number of judges handling asylum cases and how important it is, 58% of Democrats said it was very important. Only 45% of Republicans said it was very important. So there's a difference here, right? And that gets, of course, to the real issues, right? Republicans do not want people to seek asylum. They think the problem is not the meddling or the danger and the stuff that's going on in these countries. They just think it's not our problem to deal with it, even though they're coming, of course, to our border. And in a lot of cases, we have caused a problem in the first place. Significantly more Republicans than Democrats said it was very important to reduce the number of people coming to the U.S. to seek asylum. 65% said it's very important for Republicans, 24% for Democrats. And more importantly, make it harder for asylum seekers to be granted legal status. And that's 40% very important for Republicans, 10% for Democrats. So understand, it's not about the issue, dealing with the issues that cause people to seek asylum, right? The war on drugs, backing right-wing coups, being the main arms supplier for the cartels in Mexico through not regulating gun purchases like straw purchases in America. Republicans would rather not solve these problems, and I'm talking about the politicians, right? They'd rather not solve the problems and make it harder for people to come in and claim asylum. They do not want people coming here. And because there is a significant number of people who are racist. And Coulter, again, she says all the time, these people coming in from South America or Central America, they have a peasant culture. They're adding to the browning of America. Tucker Carlson talked about the white replacement conspiracy theory, right? That, Latinos are being funded to come in here and replace white people. Fox and Friends talks about how dirty and diseased these people are, how filthy they are, how disgusting they are. On and on and on. Donald Trump talks about invasions constantly. I wonder why they don't want people coming in and claiming asylum. And the overall answer is because they don't see them as human beings. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.